If we try to believe in anything greater than a miracle, it wouldn't be this difficult. If we try to be.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from the group 2. We'll be presenting about the article review of IPAC's financial support for Israel war. First, my name is Muhammad Faizuddin bin Taj Azian. I will be presenting the introduction of the article highlight how the recent 2023 Israel-Palestine conflict has once again brought the US-Israel relationship under global scrutiny. The 2023 Israel-Palestine war has renewed the global focus on the close political and military ties between the United States and Israel. Attention has turned to lobbying groups like IPAC and their influence on the US foreign policy. This raises concern about how such influence may distort democratic processes and ethical decision-making in the US. To understand the depth of this alliance, we need to look at its historical foundations. US support for a Jewish homeland began as early as 1917 with formal recognition of Israel in 1948. Over the decades, US backing has remained consistently strong across both political parties, especially during global conflicts. This alliance is reinforced by massive financial support from the US to Israel. Israel has received over 158 billion in aid, including military and defense support. A major deal in 2016 locked in 38 billion over 10 years, showing deep long-term commitment regardless of the regional development. However, this level of support raises serious ethical and governance concerns. Aid often continues despite concern about human rights violations and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Lobbying efforts are seen to skew US policy away from objectivity and democratic accountability, affecting its global image. That's all from me, and I will pass the presentation to the next person.
Hi, Assalamualaikum and good morning. My name is Sharifah Fatimah Akmal binti Said Ubaidillah and my metric number is 2023223042. And today I will be presenting the main point of our article review, focusing on the unconditional and unequal relationship between the US and Israel, particularly through the influence of IPAC. IPAC is an American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, is one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the US. Although it's officially non-partisan, IPAC plays a major role in shaping US foreign policy, especially in favor of Israel. It does this by funding political campaigns, organizing public relation campaigns, and also lobbying key government officials. Their main goals include ensuring the continuous US military aid to Israel, deterring Iran's nuclear program, and blocking any diplomatic efforts they see as unfavorable, like UN ceasefire resolution. IPAC also works aggressively to silence critics of Israel policies, often labeling them as anti-Semitic, which raises concerns about free speech and democratic accountability. Now, following the October 7, 2023 Hamas attacks, the US responded quickly by supporting Israel's right to defend itself. But the scale of Israel's retaliation on Gaza, which caused over 600 Palestinian civilian deaths and also widespread destruction, has led to accusation of war crimes by international bodies. Yet the US, heavily influenced by IPAC, has consistently blocked global efforts for a ceasefire. Even when the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu, the US rejected the decision and continues its support, showing just how unconditional the alliance really is. In short, the relationship is not just politically one-sided, it's also ethically troubling, especially they viewed through the lens of international law, human rights, and also democratic values. Thank you.
Democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That is the famous quote of Abraham Lincoln, the former president of United States. However, what is happening in United States right now is more like a government of the rich, by the rich, and for the rich. Now, let's talk about how money can undermine democracy of a country according to the article. One prime example of this is the case of Jamal Bowman, a congressman who supports Palestinian rights, targeted by the IPAC. In response to his voice for the Palestinian cause, IPAC put millions into his opposition, funding the attack acts and threatening his re-election, in which he lost. According to the data, IPAC has spent over a record of over $20 million in trying to unseat just one congressman. To put it in perspective, that number is more than the entire United Kingdom spending on election. Additionally, a report from The Guardian found that the member of Congress who publicly supported Israel during the 2023 war received over 100,000 on average in pro-Palestine donation. Pro-Israel, I mean. The group also reportedly strategically targets high-ranking officials such as House Speaker, Vice President, and National Security Advisors. This raises a serious question: is United States democracy for the people or for those who can pay the most? When an election can be won or lost based on who writes the biggest check, it challenges the very foundation of fair representation of democratic system. In our view, not only the democracy of United States they are being harmed and vulnerable to the lobbying of AIPAC, but also the democracy of the world because of the existence of veto power which the United States holds. Peter Nadine, an independent scholar and former researcher with the United Nations University, quoted, "The veto is an anachronism. In the 21st century, the veto has come to be almost universally seen as disproportionate power and an impediment to credible international action to crisis. Imagine having a country who have the power to completely eradicate or ignore the whole world's majority voice, and that country is being heavily influenced by a lobbying or interest group of another country who is currently committing the biggest atrocities in this planet. Absolutely disgusting."
After reading the article, The Role of the Jewish Lobby Toward U.S. Foreign Policy Making on the 2023 Israel-Palestine War by Yoshua Satsmerolitua Gotham and Hafiz Dauda Miftah, our group agrees with the main points made by the authors. We believe the article clearly explains how IPAC has a strong influence on U.S. foreign policy, and this raises serious ethical concerns. It shows how money and political power can affect government decisions even when the public disagrees. This is very worrying for a democratic country. We are also concerned about the humanitarian impacts. The US continues to support Israel even when it breaks international law. This shows how lobbying groups can protect leaders from paying help responsibility. As ethics and governance students, this article made us think deeply about the moral role of governments. We believe that leaders should always act with fairness, transparency, and protect human rights. In conclusion, this article is important to our studies. It teaches us to support honest and fair leaderships and to speak up for justice and the rule of law in our country and around the world. In our conclusions, the article by Gautam and Miftah give a strong and timely message about how US support for Israel, especially during the 2023 wars, raises serious ethical and democratic concerns. It clearly shows that IPAC's influence goes far beyond normal policy making. It affects the heart of American democracy. The actors remind us that while lobbying is legal, it becomes a problem when it puts foreign interests above the well-being of the American people. The US cannot claim to support democracy and human rights if it supports actions that go against international law. They also bring up an important quote from George Washington warning against close political ties with other countries. This advice still matters today, as too much influence from outside can harm a nation's independence and values. In conclusion, the article is not just informative, it's a call for actions. It encourages leaders, citizens, and civil society to demand more transparency, fairness, and ethical behavior in governance decisions.